What's going on, guys? This is Sean from Southwestern Studios, and we need to talk about the Sony A6000 as a travel camera and whether or not it is right for you. So get yourself some coffee, take your shoes off, sit back, and let's get started because it's going to be quite a discussion. All right, now first things first, I want to let you guys know that I took the Sony A6000 and the 16-70 f4 Zeiss combo over to Bangkok, Thailand and Autofocus, Thailand to find out whether or not it is a worthy travel photography camera. Now I'm going to give you the answer right now, and the answer is yes, but that's not good enough. So what I decided to do was, while I was in the middle of the expeditions, I started taking notes and noted everything that was good and bad and anything that I noticed about this specific camera combination, and I'm going to talk to you about it right now. So first things first, we are looking at the Sony A6000 and the Zeiss 16-70 f4. Now, like I said earlier, what I found out is that it is an excellent travel companion, but again, don't take just my word for it. We're going to go over the reasons why, and later on I'm going to show you video that I took of this. So not only do you see the reasons right here that I'm talking to you about this, but later on you will see parts of the trip, parts of the journey, what's going on through my head at the time, and most importantly you will see the actual photos that I took, which aren't too bad, and hope you guys enjoy this whole review. All right, so first things, we're going to get started. I'm going to list the cons first, and then later I'll list the pros because we want to save the best stuff for last. But again, let me tell you, the A6000 is a very capable travel camera, and no matter what situation you use, I would say that the A6000, from the basic to advanced level, is a camera that you would be well served to have, and for many reasons, and we're going to go over these reasons right now. Okay, again, starting off with the cons, and we're going to get to the pros and the good stuff later on. So in no particular order, these are the notes that I used and that I wrote down as I was out there shooting to make sure they were fresh in my mind. All right, starting off, and again, this is no particular order. The image quality falls apart at night due to the f4-ness of this lens. So while this is a very good lens, we'll get into that later on, the image quality isn't so great due to that f4. Now, the A6000 has decent low light performance, but with this lens on here, at night, you're not going to get those super crispy, sharp images that you would get in the daytime, but it's to be expected, so it's not that big of a deal. Okay, here's one con that kept popping up on me. I got this error called unable to magnify, and it would happen fairly often when I was trying to go back and review the photos, because I'm a bit of a pixel peeper, so I like to see it up close just to make sure it nailed that sharpness and it nailed that focus. But unfortunately, I would get this error a lot, and the fix was to turn the camera off, turn the camera back on again. It worked. Is there something wrong with it? I'm not sure. But the rest of the camera worked fine, with the exception of this error that would intermittently appear. All right, the autofocus, and this is a nitpick. Sometimes the autofocus on whatever mode you're using doesn't hit. Now, it is fast and snappy, but there are times when it just doesn't hit 100%. So I was looking at about a 75% hit rate. For what I was doing, it was good enough because I was able to get the right photos that I needed. They were sharp and in focus. But it's something to note that if you're having extremely high action scenarios, the autofocus might not be able to keep up perfectly. But if you're looking for that, you might as well get the A9, right? Okay, here we go. Here's one issue that needs to be rectified by Sony. So this lens right here works really well with the A6000. However, when we're using it like this one doesn't work so well. So what's going to happen is I'm going to show up a picture right here, and you're going to see when you use this flash, you're going to have this shadow on the left side of the screen, and that's due to the fact that even with the lens hood off, you're still getting that crazy shadow. It's something that really shouldn't happen, and Sony should have figured this out, or at least made the lenses to specs where it's not going to interfere with this. But it is a concern because you can get decent nighttime photos with the use of this flash, But the problem is, if you use any lens except for the kit lens, which is a piece of garbage, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. You're going to get this horrible overcast shadow. I don't like it. It's an issue, and it can be, especially for nighttime shots or shots where you need some sort of fill flash. Now, that's not the only thing about this flash though. This flash is actually very versatile and capable. What you can do is, if you see right here, you can pull it back and you can use it for bounce shots on top, or you can use it for bounce shots on the side too as well. So here to there and here to here. Now that does open up some powerful picture opportunities if you have the right surroundings around you. But for the most part, if you're looking to use fill flash, it's not going to work with any decent lens, because why Sony? I would like to know that too as well. So if you're using a lens that's going to get you results, using this flash is probably something you might not be able to do. So keep that in mind. All right, which brings me to my next point. The kit lens is extremely low quality. I don't care what anybody says. I've been through like 5 of them to test them out, and they all suck. So what happens is, you as a consumer would buy an A6000, a beginner's camera, a powerful beginner's camera that people will say it's a great camera. You buy it with the kit lens, you shoot it at 16 millimeters, you see fuzz. You shoot it at 70 millimeters, or you shoot it at 50 millimeters, you see fuzz. I don't like that. You shouldn't like that either. Now, there are people that will say, and I've tested this out and it does work, if you shoot between 28 and 35 millimeters and f8, that you will get good results, sharp results. It's true. I've done that. But the problem is though, again, as a consumer, what consumer is going to be, I'm going to only shoot 28 to 35 f8. That's not going to work. Even for an experienced photographer, f8's quite a handicap. And as soon as the light goes down, even if you're getting sharp results, that ISO is getting cranked way up. So that sharpness is getting lost due to all the noise gain. So you're losing the detail anyway. It's a lose-lose situation. The kit lens is horrible. It really sucks. Sony, please give us a kit lens that is sharp at 16 and sharp at 50. That's all we ask for. And that camera will be amazing. The A6000 will sing. As it is, the kit lens that you offer now really is crippling this camera. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, here. The wide area focus doesn't always focus on the subject correctly. So say I'm trying to do a portrait, or I'm trying to capture a dog in motion running, and I use the wide area focus, it just doesn't grab what I'm looking for, and really it'll nail it 30% of the time. It's not good enough. So it's kind of a crapshoot. So if you're using wide angle focus, be prepared to press this over and over and over again until it finally locks onto it. Just don't use the wide area focus if you really don't need to, especially for subjects of different colors and different contrasts. It just won't know what to pick, and it'll probably pick the wrong thing. This is what happened to me too. So stick with a different focusing mode. All right, here's a big thing to me. There is no electronic shutter on this camera. Later on, it'll be introduced in the A6300 and above. But what happens is, you can hear right now that because there's no electronic shutter and you're trying to be kind of stealthy, you're gonna hear a pretty big click. It makes a loud noise. So again, if you're one of those stealthy street type of photographers that really tries to get the candid moments without anybody noticing, it's gonna be a little bit hard. But in my experience, and for the trip that we went on, it was okay. It wasn't that big of a deal, and nobody really noticed. Some places were quiet, some places were loud, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But I could see this being an issue in certain circumstances. Again, especially if you're trying to be discreet and get a nice shot where nobody is really aware that you're taking the photo. So again, something to take note of. All right, the 16-70 f4 Zeiss, it is a great lens, and we'll get to that into the pros. But one of the cons about it is on the A6000 itself, it is off balance, and you find yourself having the camera like this. With the A63 and 6500, it does have that metal chassis, so it balances much better with it, but the A6000 is mostly plastic, so the actual camera body is fairly light. The lens is a bit heavy and it does tend to suffer from balance issues. I got used to it after the second, third day of the trip, but it was something that even right now, when I'm picking it up, I still feel it and I still notice it, and it still bugs me just a little bit. All right, this is an issue. The next one's an issue that we've had with many Sony cameras already, and that is the poor battery life. Now, this has been somewhat rectified by the new A9 and its bigger battery, but for the other ones, the battery, expect it to suck, expect it to not be that great, and expect to at the very least, have 2 fresh batteries with you for each day. At the very least, you will either get to the end of that second battery or you will need a third one, but 2 at the minimum. And any more batteries on top of that would be good. Now, obviously, we don't want to be switching batteries out left and right, left and right, left and right, but this is such a small camera that's what the batteries do, and they're just not super high capacity. So that's one of the issues that I have to take note of, and that did pop up during the trip. Okay, now this is for video shooters. If you shoot video with this camera, you will like it because you can get B-roll. However, it only shoots 1080p, whereas the A6300 shoots 4K, and there is no audio or headphone jack, which might annoy a few people, even myself too as well. I'd rather have there at least be a microphone input, but there isn't anything like this on this camera. So again, good for cheap B-roll footage, but not so good as any sort of main camera for video. Okay, so now that's it with the cons that I've noticed on the trip. Now we're gonna go to the pros, and the pro list is even longer. So again, if you want to take a little break, I'll wait. All right, break's finished. Let's go ahead and get started with the pros. Okay, here we go. Number 1, and again, these are no particular order, is now we have this little flip out LCD screen. So you can move it up, move it down. And in practice, how this works, and for travel photography, what this is great for is, say you need to get a nice low angle shot. Now you either have to guess the shot or you'd have to actually get on the ground and twist your head and do all that nonsense. Now you don't have to do that. All you have to do is pull the screen out, drop it real low, get the screen frame the shot, and then you're good to go. One thing you do have to worry about though is that sometimes if the screen pops right here, and it'll actually hit this little sensor and it'll force it into the electronic viewfinder mode, and you will lose that screen. So you have to just kind of play around with this just a little bit to make sure that it's not going to trigger the EVF. So again, you can drop down real low, get the shot, nice low angle up to the top. And again, if you need a higher angle shot, all you do is this, boom, 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 right there, and you can see exactly what you need. Now I'm 6'5", and so this gives me another at least 3 feet worth of range going bottom and then going up high, and I can get to about 7.5, almost 8 feet worth of range off this camera, which is nice. So any angle, doesn't matter, I can get it, which is cool. Even if you're a bit shorter, you still will be able to have an increased range of your shooting angles due to this simple little fact right here. Okay, so that's a big plus. No particular order. All right, let's talk about the fact that this does work with the flash triggers. So I did take my Phottix Odin 2 and Mitros Plus receiver, and I did shoot with this sometimes. Now, it is a bit overkill, but I'm gonna put the photos up anyway so you can check out a couple of them, see how the photos came out with that. Now, I didn't take any modifiers, I just took the bare flash and the receiver, so that's it. But this does work with your wireless flash triggers and receivers, so make note of that. Okay, one thing I found out was that the 11 frames per second is amazingly useful, especially when you're trying to go out there and shoot in areas where there are a lot of other tourists and you want to get a shot where there's not so many people in the frame. But what ends up happening is if you take too long, people start getting really testy and other people want to go and take the shot, and it becomes kind of a huge mess. So you don't want to be that person that goes there and it takes 5 minutes to get your one shot. So we'll talk about jump shots specifically and action shots where people are walking towards or away the screen, whatever. So with this 11 frames per second on this camera, it makes it amazingly, and listen to this, it makes it amazingly useful to get the shot right the first time. So there was one part where I wanted to set up a jump shot with the girls, and I got them into position. I said, you're gonna do this. And as soon as I locked the focus on them, once they went down to their knees to get up and do the jump, I hit the 11 frames per second. It caught the entirety of it. I pulled the right frame out and we were finished. So they got an amazing shot, which I'm gonna show right now, off the first time. Everything was good. And then after that, then the other tourists came in, took their photos. Everybody was cool, everything was cool. Because this 11 frames per second allows me to get the shot right the first time, and that is huge because that cuts the workflow in dramatically. And another thing too as well, when you're traveling with groups, different people want to do different things, so it's not always easy for you to get the shot and set up the shot. So when the shot finally gets set up and everybody agrees to it, then you better make sure as a photographer to get it right the first time. That way you don't miss it and nobody gets upset, everybody's happy, so on and so forth. All right, next thing, this is another big one too. It didn't overheat on me. I had it in the 100-degree, super humid Thai sun, and those days were hot. It's hard to explain how hot it was, but let me tell you, it was hot. I was sweating. It was tough, and this camera performed like a champ. Sometimes I had it on, sometimes I had it off, but it was always right there with me in the sun. Where it got too hot for me, I had to cover up with the scarf. This camera didn't need anything. It kept going and going and going. And again, with the exception of the unable to magnify error, it worked out fine. So that's really good. Really happy to let you know that when you're taking photos, you won't have to worry about this camera going crazy and overheat. I never even saw the indicator. So that says something. Okay, here we go. Now let's talk about the autofocus, about what I said earlier. It's good enough. It's not going to be like a DSLR level quality. It's certainly not going to be like a 1DX Mark II or a D5 level autofocus. But what it does is, for such a small, compact camera, you will get the shot more often than not. So if you're worried about the autofocus capabilities of it, don't worry about it, because you will get sharp shots with the autofocus on this camera. There's many situations where I tested where it was moving back and forth. There was some action going on, whatever. It got plenty of sharp shots. So don't worry about that. Okay, here we go. We're gonna go into the meaty part of it. The 16-70, earlier I told you that the 16-70 fell apart in low light situation because of the f4 and because the camera wasn't great in low light. However, that was extreme low light situations. And any other situations, if you get a good copy of this one, the 16-70 f4 is sharp pretty much at both ends, at the wide end, at the far end, in the middle. You will get sharp photos, you will get nice photos, the colors will be nice and bright, things will pop, you will enjoy the photos that you get out of this, and you will enjoy having a smaller lens. It's not a big lens, it's actually a fairly small lens. It's a little bit heavy, but it's a small lens, and you can see it kind of telescopes out just a little bit, but it's not that bad. It's, again, very small. It takes very sharp photos, and you will be happy with the photos that you see on the screen, unlike the photos with the kit lens where you won't be happy with it. I mean, at least I know I won't be happy with it. This one, very sharp, very nice, very compact, very light, very good. It's a worthy lens to keep on this. Now, the only downside to this lens is that it can be a bit expensive, so that's one of the issues that I will talk about at the very end of this review. All right. Now, next on is, okay, so I got good results with the movable focus points. Now, what I did, it actually was fairly quick, and this doesn't have a joystick. This isn't the A9. It doesn't have a touchscreen because it's cheap, but what it does have is the movable focus point, and I was able just to quickly move it real fast, and it didn't take more than a couple seconds to get the focus point I needed to. Is it a little bit cumbersome? Yes, but the focusing system worked very well, and I was able to get plenty of great shots utilizing that one specifically. So again, don't be afraid to use the movable focus points in any sort of travel scenario. Okay, now moving on. This camera has great image quality. The JPEGs that come out of it are okay. I personally feel that Canons might be better. So if you're a photographer, or if you're a person who buys a camera and they just want the photos that come out of the camera and that's it, that's all they want to do with, you might be better off with Canon cameras, because they do, in my opinion, have pleasing colors. The Sony colors are a little bit cool, a little bit bluer, just a little bit off, but they still look good. But the hidden gem of this camera is the fact that the dynamic range on this is very flexible, and once you get in there and take it into Lightroom or your photo editor of choice, you will see that these images can be amazing, especially with the right lens. So if you are a travel photographer who wants to go back and post-process your photos, once you get it back, you will love this camera because it will get you the results that you are looking for. All right, here we go. Also, building on this, it has very good dynamic range too as well. So I will show you right here a picture of the before and a picture of the after, and you can totally see that the before picture is fairly flat looking, just real normal. But then once I post-processed it, utilizes dynamic range, and all of a sudden it's a completely different picture, and a pretty good picture at that. So one of the things that you need to rest assured is the fact that you still will be able to save the pictures that you took, even if it wasn't the greatest exposure. Chances are you'll be able to save it and still make it look like a real winner. All right, so in the world of travel and especially street photography, here's also one thing that I enjoyed about this camera, was the fact that it is very small and it doesn't attract a lot of attention. Now, there's two reasons why you don't want it to attract attention. Number one, in most normal circumstances, you don't want it to attract attention because you want to be able to capture the subjects just in their candid moments, and you don't want them really aware that you're taking photos, or you don't want it to be a big deal. So when people saw me out there taking photos with this camera, they look at the camera for a sec and they'd be like, whatever. It looks like a cheap toy camera. It doesn't look like anything professional. What they don't realize is it takes amazingly high quality images, but to them is nothing. It's no big deal. So that was great because that allowed me to navigate people, or to navigate around and take the photos pretty much anywhere of anybody, wherever that I wanted to, and nobody gave a second look at it. So that's number one. Now, number two is one that's less common, but is still very relevant, especially from the location that you'll be shooting at. Now, since I was in Thailand, there are a lot of pickpockets and thieves around there. This camera right here doesn't really attract thieves as well too. They see it, it looks like a toy camera. They're not gonna get really anything from it. So they would rather find someone who has a big, bulky looking DSLR that they think really costs money. So again, I like this one because nobody cares. And if for some reason that people do decide to take off with it, it's a cheap camera and it can be easily replaced. But I usually keep it like this with me at all times. If someone tries to yank anything, it's gonna be really hard, and I got a strong arm, so it's gonna be bad for them, not so bad for me. So anyways, going back to the compactness of this camera, this doesn't attract thieves and ne'er-do-wells. So they go move on to find a bigger and better looking camera, a bit different target, not this one. So you can go around and shoot all these kind of shady areas or suspect areas and really not worry too much that somebody's gonna come and try and grab your thing, because it doesn't look like much. But again, they don't understand, or they might not know, or they probably don't know that under the hood, it's really powerful. All right, we're making progress. We're getting close to being finished. I got a few more things to say, so let's keep on going. Okay, this camera is also durable. It was in the 100-degree, swelteringly hot, humid Thai heat. No problems. I got it down and dirty in the Thai river trying to get some really cool looking shots. I'll put it up right here so you can see. And I was trying to keep it just directly above the water, off to the side, but it still got splashed. And it got splashed pretty hard. Nothing I can do about it, just wipe it off, keep going, but it still kept going. Also, it got caught in a huge rainstorm. I had to jump out, and I knew I can get this one shot, so I decided to go ahead and get it. And unfortunately, this camera got soaked, and I'll put up a picture right now so you can see what the camera looked like. But the camera still survived and Had no issues with it. Again, I just wiped it right off. It kept right on going, no problems. So this camera is very durable. Also, it's cheap, so feel free to use and abuse this camera, and don't worry too much about keeping it nice. Just use it, use it, use it. Get the photos that you need to get, because this camera can handle it, and it's cheap enough that you can replace it if something happens, if necessary. All right, here's another one that's good for travel. It's easy enough for others to shoot. I did talk to this Thai man, and he didn't really speak much English, and obviously I didn't speak that much Thai, but what we decided to do was do a little bit of a photo shoot in this giant sleeping Buddha area, in this giant sleeping Buddha area. So what I decided to do was, we're gonna do the photo shoot. I'm gonna do it no matter what. So I had to kind of show the guy how to use this camera. Now, thankfully, it was easy enough. I just turned it on, said, here you go. I set it to 11 frames per second. I say, I'm going to do this. You look at the green frame right here. Once it's green, then you finish it off. You press halfway, you see green, you keep pressing until finished. He got it, I got it. Here's the picture right here. You can see I'm happy with it. It was great. So it's easy for others to use. If you just take about 20, 30 seconds to explain it to them, even if they don't know English, I'm pretty sure they know here, here, and there. No problem. So that worked out really well. I'm happy with that. And that is very good for a travel camera too as well, because you might not always be the only one shooting. So it's better for others to be able to know how to shoot too as well. Okay, here we go. This is also another big one, the electronic viewfinder. So in the past, you would have to rely on your camera's metering mode to kind of gauge the shot that you're gonna get, and then from there start making adjustments. So you would take a shot with the DSLR, you look in the back, see what it was, and reshoot again a couple of times just to make sure. Now with this one, with the electronic viewfinder, metering modes aren't no longer that necessary. You could just keep it on your standard, your basic metering mode, and then just use the exposure compensation and adjust it up or down as necessary and see the results in real time. So that should drastically shorten your workflow, because you know exactly what you're gonna see the moment that you take it, which is amazing too. So, and also for other people too as well, they see what's going on in the electronic viewfinder. They know that's gonna look like. They can say, yes, this is good, no, this is not good, whatever. It really helps out a whole lot. And again, it does help a whole lot. It does help a whole lot with the workflow. So that's another point. Okay, all right, we're getting to the end. Let's keep going. All right, this is a very big one for travel. Most of the time you're traveling with groups, and groups, people are gonna want pictures taken, and a lot of them. Now, I just happened to travel with 3 Chinese women, and Chinese women love their pictures being taken. I was happy to take the pictures for them, but for me, I needed to edit them. But the thing though was that they didn't care about the editing process. They just wanted the pictures over to them so they can deal with it, so they can post it up on Facebook, Instagram, what have you, that day, that evening, whatever. Now, the A6000 has a nice built-in Wi-Fi mode available. So what you can do is now you can have the A6000 take the shots, get out either an iPad or an iPhone, use the Sony app to connect to it, and you can download from the camera to the pad, the phone, whatever you have, and download all the photos that you want right then and there too. So since I shoot RAW, JPEG, it works especially well because they get the JPEGs, I can keep the RAWs for later, everybody's happy. They get the photos right then and there, they can post it up to Instagram, post it to Facebook just like that, and I have the RAWs safe for later on to where I can really get back to the computer and start post-processing them and then turning them from normal snapshots to works of art. Okay, maybe not works of art, but making them look a whole lot better too. So again, for group photo taking, the Wi-Fi is powerful because it allows you instant access to your photos like that. And it's actually a very simple and very easy process too as well. So again, the A6000 really scores a lot of points in that. All right, so the last point that I have to make, and this is both a pro and a con for the A6000 when it comes to travel. Now, I took this out here to Thailand and I used it, I abused it, I did everything I could to get the photos that I needed to, and for the most part, it did succeed, or I succeeded with it, and it performed. But the issue is that taken on its own with the body, the A6000 is amazingly worth it as a travel camera. But the problem is though, is that in order to get the images just as amazing, you will need to figure out a lens combination that will work for you. And depending on your budget, there's going to be some different options. Now, if you use the kit lens, I just don't recommend it because you probably won't be happy with the images that come out with it. That's my opinion, but I still feel that the kit lens, it's not worth it. You're better off getting a different lens. So then what lens options do we have? Well, you can get the cheap 50mm 1.8, the E-mount version. Now, that's also very sharp and it takes great images. It's nice and low light, but the problem is though, is that it's a little bit too far for my liking. So it's built more for taking portraits than it is for just walking around in general street and travel photography. You're gonna have to find yourself walking far, far back to get a decent field of view, and you can forget about any sort of landscape work. So we have the 35mm 1.8 OSS, also E-mount version. Now that one is a lot better because it gives you more or less a 50mm field of view. But the problem is now it's expensive, and it's more expensive than it should be in my opinion, but it's pretty expensive, and it's not something that I would recommend. The 16-70 is also very expensive, and I recommend it, but only if you have the budget for it. Okay. Now, the one that I recommend most would be maybe the 30mm Sigma 1.4 for this one, because it matches up well, it's decent in low light, and it gives you around 45mm field of view. So you can pretty much use it just as an all-purpose, all-around lens. You can get decent portraits, you can walk back a little bit, and you might be able to get some decent like landscape, environmental shots too as well. So that's something that you need to take in consideration, because if you're getting an A6000, a cheap A6000, chances are you also want to get a lens that's fairly cheap too as well, but that will give you good performance. For me, I would usually use the 16-70 and the A6500, but again, this is one of the things. The A6000 is so cheap that I do feel comfortable taking this camera out to a place or subjecting it to conditions that I wouldn't feel good about doing the same with the A6500, because it is just so much more money. So that's so again that's it's both a pro and a con. But really, in the end, when we talk about the Sony A6000 and is it worth it as a travel camera, my answer is yes. It is completely worth it, provided that you have the right lens for you. Then you will have a very, very powerful travel camera at your disposal that takes amazing images and takes very high quality, sharp, amazing images. So the last piece of the puzzle would be you, the photographer. Can you get those images from this camera? It's not up to the camera, it's up to you. Anyways, guys, this has been Sean from Southwestern Studios. We've talked enough about this one right here. Now I want to direct you to this part right here. This part is the actual video. So you're going to see the video. You're going to see some snippets of video. You're going to see what's going on through my mind when I'm taking the photos and post or pre-photo taking. And you're also going to see the photos themselves along with a couple little bonuses at the end. So like I said, this is just part one of the A6500 travel camera review. Part two is going to be the actual visualization of this whole thing. So hope you guys enjoyed this talk. I know it was long. I know it was long. I know it was very winding, but I needed to make sure that you guys know what I saw, and I needed to make sure that I'm very thorough with the information that I'm giving you guys, because it's an important decision if you're buying a camera or looking at it for a specific use. So again, guys, this is Sean from Southwestern Studios. Don't forget to check out video number 2. That's also up on YouTube right now, and I'm linking it right here. Take a look at that one. Go watch it, go enjoy it. You can see the entire process and the whole deal. And I will be talking to you guys later. Hope you guys enjoyed, and take care.